my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great.
Hello, Beyond Your Wildest Dreams tribe. I'm Dr. Noah DeCoyer, your co-host, and on behalf of my partners, Dr. Michael Akinfora and Dr. Wanda Lee McPhee, we want to thank you all for subscribing. As we surge to 100,000 subscribers, we would like to show you our appreciation with 3 free gifts. In our show notes on iTunes and Podomatic, there are 3 separate links to each of our most latest ebooks: Fermentation 101, Paleo Crockpot Style, and Whole Foods Harvest. Thank you again, and before you begin listening to this incredible podcast, don't forget to register for our upcoming summit, the Longevity and Anti-Aging Project, Living Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise, at www.antiagingproject.com.
Welcome to Beyond Your Wildest Dreams podcast. Today, I'm Dr. Wanda Lee McPhee, and I'm introducing you to our guest, Jairek Robbins. At only 23 years old, Jairek was awarded the Congressional Award Gold Medal from the United States Congress, and today he's continued his work in making the world a better place, maximizing personal and professional standards and performance, both in individual coaching and in corporate coaching and speaking. As an innovator, Jairek uses his own philosophies and lives a life of adventure, philanthropy, and entrepreneurship. He does more than just talk about it. He stretches the boundaries of traditional thinking and makes it happen. He is the creator of the Rapid Results Bootcamp and the author of Live It, Achieve Success by Living with Purpose. Welcome to our podcast today, Jairek.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So one of the things we like when we're introducing someone to our audience is to find out a little bit about you. I know in your book you talk a little bit about what led you to the realization that there was more to life than maybe what you were currently experiencing. Do you want to share that story a little bit with our listeners?
Sure. There's been lots of stuff, but the biggest transition moment, the biggest wake-up call I had, I was living in a village over in East Africa, and I'll rewind right before that. So I had an amazing opportunity in university to do something called Semester at Sea. And it's basically a ship that fills up with about 600, 700 students and all the professors on board. And they bring professors from all different universities all over the United States, mainly, sometimes the world. And it literally sails all the way around the world. So we started in Vancouver and we went all throughout Asia. So China, Japan, China, Thailand, India, Africa. We went to Tanzania, Kenya, South Africa, then South America, Brazil, Venezuela, back up to Florida. And it was 110 days, and you get about 7 to 10 days in each country. And what was remarkable is you're studying on board, and then you step off the ship and get to see in motion what you're studying. And I was studying psychology, so we were studying sociology and cross-cultural psychology, and you're learning about individualistic cultures versus collectivist cultures, and you step off the boat in Asia and go, wow, I understand what I just read now at a whole different level. So it was a remarkable experience. While I was doing that, we stopped in East Africa, and I just remember there was something about life there, just an aliveness, a spirit that existed that I connected with really, really strongly. And so I decided the moment I got home that I was going to pause my university. I had 2 years left at that point, or a year and a half left. I paused it, and I took a semester off to go live abroad as a volunteer in Uganda and teach organic farming. And so I was living in a village. There's no running water, no electricity, no toilets. One of the most beautiful places you could ever visit in your entire life. And just magnificent, but very, 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 lacking resources, to say the least, or struggling on that end. And the beautiful part is there was so much to learn there and so much to experience. While I was there, the village itself, because of the well water and the environment and the lack of sanitary stuff, there was malaria rampant where I was living. I grew up in Southern California. I have some very holistic and practical parents who believe in healing naturally and not taking medicines. And so I grew up firmly in that space. With the mindset my body will heal itself. I just have to, drink greens and think positive. And so when I got malaria, my thought was my body will heal itself. I'll just drink greens and think positive.
Absolutely.
If you've ever had malaria, it takes a lot more than positive thoughts and drinking greens. So I was stubborn and kept arguing with the doctor who said, take the medicine. I was like, my body will be fine. I believe it will. And we go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I got to the point where I waited, I think, a couple months into the process in my body, which is not a smart thing to do. My body had broken down to that point. One of my lungs was starting to shut off. I was having trouble breathing. And at that point, I went to the clinic and, got in an argument with the doctor again. And he just couldn't figure out why I wouldn't take the medicine. And so he said, here, let me show you. Maybe you're visual. So he took some blood out of my body. He put it on the screen and he showed me through a microscope what was going on. And he showed me each little cell and he said, see these dots? He said, this is what's in your cell right now. He says, at what we're counting based on our equipment, you have around 55,000 parasites per one red blood cell. And I was like, wow, that sounds interesting, but what is it? And he said, basically, here's what it does. The malaria is in your blood. It goes and lays eggs in all your cells. Every 8 to 10 hours, all those eggs hatch. When they hatch, they explode out of your red blood cell and kill that cell. And then that cell's no good anymore. And now they immediately feed on water, so your body will be instantaneously dehydrated. And then they go lay eggs in all the other cells that they can get to. And it repeats itself. So he says every 8 to 10 hours, it's going to double. Right now, you have 55,000 parasites per one red blood cell. You'll have 110, keep going. And he says at this calculation, based on blood cells, based on the count, we estimate there's about 5 days. And I remember staring at him and as positive thinking as I am, I said, 5 days till what? Mm-hmm. And he looked straight at me in the eye and he said, listen, 5 days until your body can no longer sustain itself.
It's a bit of a wake up, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a whole different perspective on life right there. And I was talking to my mom about this, not this exact moment, but she's having her own health stuff right this moment. And she said something. She goes, all those times in your life when you look forward and think, oh, there'll always be tomorrow. I haven't done that trip I've always wanted to take. I'll get to it. I haven't really, reach out to those people who matter to me and connect with them, or spent time with the loved ones I want, or finally went after that dream I've always had, or started that class I wanted to take, or finished that degree I started, or whatever it is you're after. Started the business, whatever that thing is for you. There's always tomorrow. I'll get to it eventually. And when someone throws something like that in your face, especially in your early 20s, it quickly sweeps the whole tomorrow concept out from under you. And I remember just sitting there thinking, wow. My parents were my closest mentors at that point, so I decided to call and see what they thought. They were pretty adamant about not taking stuff, so he shoved the medication across the table. He said, take it. And I took it, and I was like, see you in 6 days. And I walked out. I still had a little bit of ego kicked in there. But I remember walking out and just being nervous, and I started crying. And I called home, and I was thinking about all the things I might not ever get to do, like have a family or get married, have children, finish my degree, start a business, make a difference in more people's lives. And I always imagined growing up that I would be able to touch millions of people's lives in a positive way throughout my lifetime. And now at that moment thinking it'd never happen. And so I remember calling home, and I got a hold of Dad first, and he was in a unique position right to go out to a big thing, a big event he was part of. And I got a hold of him for a few minutes and told him what was going on. And he, his advice was, buddy, whatever you believe with certainty, and he's done so much research on the mind and health and a placebo effect, and he said, whatever you believe with certainty will work. If you believe the medicine will heal you, it will. Take it. If you believe your body will heal you, it will. Take it. But you have to believe with 100% certainty. Not an ounce of doubt can exist in your body. And I remember going, okay. And I hung up, and I thought, shit, that didn't help. Love the advice, but take it or not. It's up to you. Just believe. I was like, okay, I'm trusting the force, but I'm not sure which to go here. So I tried the second number. I tried to call Mom. Much different experience. I got a very mama bear experience on this one. She goes, gosh darn you, I didn't raise you for 20-something gosh darn years for you to go kill yourself in some God-forbidden country. Take the damn pill and I'm on my way. Click. Now we're thinking, uh-oh. I've awoken the mama bear who's never traveled outside of the U.S. but is about to get on a plane to Uganda to come find me in the middle of nowhere. I'm in trouble. So I took that pill. and the biggest mind shift there was sitting down. I remember spending about 10 days in a hospital. And while I was in that hospital, I was hooked up to IVs the whole time, just constantly rehydrating my body. And these were some of the hardest days. I mean, if you've ever had to take that medicine, you get vertigo, you're all over the place. And so lying there in that bed for that prolonged period of time, and there was no one else who really spoke English around me. None of my family was close by. I luckily had a cell phone. I kept having to recharge and pay a bunch of money to call home, but I was talking to friends and relatives, and they were all praying for me. And it was weird because it was just a moment where a lot of thoughts had to come to fruition, and I had to think through all of them. Who was I going to be? If I were to go out and I were to die tomorrow, what legacy would I want to leave? What could I do right now to really, really live life to the fullest and experience all of what life has to offer? If I were to die tomorrow, how would I want to live this day so that even though I'm just doing simple little things, it would be the most fulfilling day I could ever imagine? And all these thoughts kept going through my head, and it came when I came back. I was on a mission to change the world, and everything that existed on that bucket list of stuff I wanted to experience in life. I call it a live it list because I was kind of pissed the bucket list didn't work out because I had a bucket list before, but when I found myself literally 5 days from possibly dying, I was kind of pissed because I didn't do anything on the damn list. So I was like, it has to be a live it list. You can't just have a bucket list. You got to freaking live it. And I was like, it needs deadlines and dates. You got to do something with this. You can't just write it and let it sit there. And so I was frustrated with myself at that moment. And I came home and I just put that list to work. And so if you ever heard that song, I think it's Garth Brooks, went skydiving, race car driving.
Live like you're dying.
Yeah, I did the whole thing. So I'm in my office right now, and I've got pictures of driving race cars, jumping out of planes, swimming with sharks, went and saw the gorillas in Rwanda. Like, I made a list, and I put that list on fire. And everything on it was getting ticked off as fast as possible. Some things I needed to hold off a bit. I was trying to pick a wife the moment I got home because I had decided that I needed to check that list too. That was not a good idea. I found out you have to wait and find the right person, not just choose someone. So there was lots of beauty that happened there and lots of learning. But the biggest thing that came out of it was a question that I use before every project I work on now, before everything I decide to get involved with, which is, if I were to die tomorrow and this was the legacy I left behind, is this what I would want it to be?
That is powerful advice right there. And the great thing about being able to share that with others like today is that hopefully they can avoid getting to that precipice of living and dying and be able to live without the suffering that got you to that point. Yeah. So,
and to be honest, it is unique. It is its own thing. At the same time, it's not unique. There's a lot of people who are faced with these moments in their life all the time. And the tricky part is, people, exactly what you said. My hope is that people never, ever, ever have to get that close. But for some reason, there's something that has to happen in someone's life that becomes that moment for them. Now, for some people, they're strong enough and smart enough that it can be a simple decision that says, hey, from this day forward, I'm going to make sure I live fully in every way possible. For other people, I don't know why. Maybe some of us, including myself, are a little hard-headed in this area. We need to get 2 feet from death and have it stare us in the eyes and say, hey, wake up, before we actually do something. Both are normal. And I have lots of friends. Brendan Burchard, he got in a wild car accident. He came out, and his big epiphany was, at the end, when you're faced with that moment, you got to ask yourself 3 questions. Did I really live? Did I really love? Did I really matter? I was like, wow, that was powerful. Great questions, and something you could ask yourself every day. Are you living today in a way that you're going to live fully, you're going to love fully when you have those moments and chances and opportunities? And, are you living today in a way that you're going to matter far beyond today just by the way you showed up? But those moments seem to spark some really beautiful things inside of people.
Well, and that's been sort of your philosophy and the message, I think, that clearly comes through in your book. Learn it, live it, give it. It seems pretty straightforward, but people are sometimes paralyzed at even figuring out where to start. Creating a vision sounds like a really good idea, but it seems sometimes like too big a reach from where they are sitting right now. How do you help people kind of get out of that inertia and start that life?
Great question. It's interesting because there's a couple dynamics that exist. There's a wonderful, wonderful woman named Alison Armstrong who did research on the development of men. She spent about 15 years researching. She has a book called The Amazing Development of Men. And she says something, when men are in a specific stage of life, they carry this with them always, but in a very specific stage, which is between, I think, 18 or 13 to probably like 35 or 40 years old, somewhere in that range. There's a big chunk of life for younger men. These guys, if they don't feel that they can succeed at what it is they're looking at, they won't even try. Because it's interesting that psychological, she says men and women, I say masculine and feminine, because some women have this same energy inside of them. But the masculine energy, if it looks at something and feels it cannot succeed, it won't even attempt starting. So when we cross paths with people who paint this huge, huge, huge vision, and they're inspired by these great speakers and lecturers who say, paint the vision 10 times, 100 times bigger than you could ever imagine. Because even if you miss, the moon, you'll land up with the stars. And it's like, wow, what a wonderful quote. But the thought is, if that vision gets too big in their mind and they can't conceptually figure out how they would be victorious with it, they won't even get started with it. So with those types of people, first, we still paint the big vision, but then we literally break it down all the way to a small enough chunk, and that might even be the chunk of today. All you have to focus on is how you can have a victory today. That's it. That's the win. Or maybe it's a week. Maybe it's a month for some people, a quarter, a year, 5-year chunk, whatever it is. But you chunk it down and bring it small enough to a bite-sized piece where they feel they can be victorious. And when you keep them focused on that level, all of a sudden you'll see them start to pick up momentum and actually go for it. Now, on the flip side, the feminine energy, it's willing to try all kinds of stuff. According to Allison, it's based on the fact that, a lot of the people who have feminine energy, whether it's the mom or dad who's raising the baby, they're trained by an infant. And when an infant is crying and screaming its eyes out, that person who's raising it will try anything to get it to stop. Hand it a napkin. Did that work? Hand it a pen, hand it anything. Just do something to that child and see if it'll get it to stop. and so that energy, that person is trained. Many times the mother is trained by the infant to try anything to see if it'll work. So what's beautiful when you're working with someone who has more of that energy or thought process, they're willing to try everything. The fun part is you can paint that vision so wildly big, it's crazy. And you constantly have to remind them of, hey, if the first approach doesn't work, try the next one, try the next one, try the next one, try the next one. And they're willing to do that. So those are two pieces we pay attention to when we work with clients one-on-one, is really identifying what energy do they vibe with. Are they more masculine or feminine? And it's not man or woman always, but whatever energy they vibe with, how do we help them use that to either break it down to a small enough piece that's palatable and easy to do, or be willing to try so many different options that they can keep going until they find one that works, and then keep finding more, because more might work too. And those are great ways to get started. But for both, the one thing you need that you mentioned is you need a really, really clear vision of what it is you're aiming for. And part of that vision, we try to pull it all the way down. Obviously, it'd be awesome to have a 5, 10, 20, 40, 50-year, 100-year vision for your life if you believe you can go that far, which is always a weird question. I always ask people, when I'm in front of an audience, I'll say, close your eyes and imagine yourself at 80 years old. What do you look like? How do you feel? What are you doing? And I'll say, open your eyes. Now raise your hand real quick. How many of you didn't even make it to 80 years old? And you ask around the room, and you'll see, out of 100 people, maybe 5, 10 people raise their hand. I'm like, wow. And I'll ask them, how old are you? And they're like 30. I'm like, and you don't even make it to 80? You must have a real good time in your 20s. I don't know what you're up to. And they laugh, and I'm like, wow, your vision doesn't even go there yet. And then I'll say, okay, try it again. Close your eyes. What about 100? 100 years old. Close your eyes. How many people made it to 100? Raise your hand. And a good, almost 40% of the room always says they never make it. And what's crazy is what you believe in your mind to be true about that will come true. You know, most people, when you think about yourself at 80 years old or 100, you see this person who's like, oh, my back, like hard waddling through life, barely making it. And then I throw up examples on the screen of people in their 80s and even a guy at 100 who are a lady in her 80s who's running the Ironman competition. Mm-hmm. And a man at 100 years old in France who's competing in distance bike racing, physical, like pedal bike racing at 100 years old, and he's at record pace. And I was telling him, like, hey, anything's possible where your vision goes. It just matters what you believe and what you constantly reaffirm in your own mind and concretely pound into your head. And so with that, coming back, for most people going that far out, like you said, it's a big chunk to try to figure out. And there's so many variables and options and things. So what we start with people is just, what would your perfect day look like? One day. Like tomorrow, if you were going to have your perfect day, what would you do? Where would you go? Who would you be with? How would you feel? What would be possible? What's everything you'd want to experience? What would you want to learn or teach or share? What would you want to receive or give? You know, how would you feel? How much energy would you have? What kind of emotions would you experience? And we help people paint this vision and picture of what that perfect day would be like. And then from there, we help them map out a very specific, palatable action plan of exactly how to make that reality. And that's what's fun. In the book, literally chapter 1 is your ideal vision. Chapters 2 through, I think, 11 is how to turn that vision literally into reality based on my experience, based on thousands of clients we've worked with over the last 10 years of helping them do it. And then the final chapter is, now that you can turn one day into reality, now you have the confidence that it's possible. So now let's paint the 5, 10, and 20-year vision for your life and use the same tools to go make that happen.
That's brilliant. I mean, in my everyday life, other than this podcasting thing, I'm a chiropractor. So we deal with those vitalistic concepts all the time, and we talk to patients as they come in, and kind of like a wellness coach, and say, well, what do you want to look like when you're 100? 80% of the time they will say, I do not want to be 100. Wow. Because in their mind, 100 is a very ugly place to be. They're sick, they're unable to function, they can't enjoy life. So they've already created a reality of what 100 looks like that is not where they need to end up. So, creating that vision or tweaking that vision or reaffirming a new vision is such a key point. So that, we may not have a choice. Modern medicine does keep us alive longer. So you may be 100. It's, what do you want to look like when you get there? And then taking ownership of the journey. So you have the choices and the options and the tools and the people who can help you make a different 100 from the one that you're thinking may not be where you want to end up. And the place where we struggle sometimes in coaching people through that in the clinic is the motivation piece. And I know you talk about that quite a bit in your book, the difference between knowing what to do and doing what you know. So what strategies have you helped people with to get them to do the thing that they now know they should do to create that great day or that great 100 days or 100 years?
Great question. It's really, truly learning how to turn up the emotional rocket fuel, which is what we call it. But it's that ability to actually inspire yourself to action. And as silly as that sounds, as many people don't have a plan, there are a lot of people with a plan. Mm-hmm. and so the first group is like, hey, you need a plan. There's your action item. Just get a plan. That's a good start. The second group who have a plan, then we start, teasing them a little and saying, but do you live your plan? You have it written out, what you're supposed to be doing every day. It's like, hey, wake up at this time, do these things, accomplish these tasks, make sure you journal, have a morning routine, have certain things you do, eat this meal. And you meet these high performers who have the perfect schedule and all this stuff they want, and they live that schedule like every fourth day. And then the crazy part is they stress out over it every day. And you guys scratch your head. You're like, what's up with that? Like, you even have a plan of how to conquer life, and for some reason you don't even do it. You just stare at it every day and get frustrated that you can't figure out how to make it happen. And so with them, there's a few things we work on. One is mindset. So really making sure the fact that we hammer in and really connect with the fact that there's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. And that's needed, because when you're about to turn up the energy and you're about to turn up that emotional rocket fuel, you're going to have some intensity, some excitement, some passion come through your blood. And you need to make sure that that passion is not allowed to get focused or amplify anything that's limiting or negative in your life. And so what happens is, when you get really passionate and really fired up, if you start focusing on and dang it, I didn't get it done today, you're amplifying the wrong stuff. It amplifies stress, which can kick off some cortisol. Adrenaline pops up. It might be good for a moment because you feel more focused. You breathe deeper. You get a little bit more energy and fuel in your body. But for the long run, if too much adrenaline is floating around and too much cortisol is stuck in those receptors, it'll start to deteriorate some of the cells that the neurotransmitters need to get across and actually fuel your body in your brain. And so that's a problem. That'll break you down internally in your physical body there. And so what we need to figure out how to get you to a place that there's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. And the feedback of it working or feedback of it not working. And that's it. It's just feedback. And feedback is given to you every day and every moment of every day, giving you some insight on what you need to adjust to make sure you get more momentum. And so that's the first principle you really need to grab onto. Now, once you've got that, now we need to jack up the emotional rocket fuel and really energize yourself and get yourself to a point that you can't not follow through. And the example I always tell people is, for most people, if you're not a driven person who wakes up and just goes, it would take a small army to get you up and moving most of the time. So we would need to hire a full football team to come to your front door and pound on it and try to scare you out of bed to go. But we want to set you up in a way that the rituals you do from the moment you wake up, so simple stuff you could do, hydration. Wake up, drink 16 ounces of water, hopefully has some lemon in it. It's wonderful for your digestive system, great for your body. The other thing that'll cause you to do, if you down the whole thing of water immediately, it'll cause you to breathe. So if you follow up that hydration with breaths, 10 deep diaphragmatic breaths to oxygenate your lower lungs, which will get into your red blood cells, which will start cleansing your body. The other thing that happens there is movement, so up and moving. So you drank a bunch of water, you're breathing deep, and all of a sudden you're moving and walking. And deep, powerful breathing mixed with the powerful movement stimulates the lymph system, which is now cleansing your body and cleaning your blood cells from the inside out. The blood, it has a pump, your heart. The tricky part is your lymph. What cleanses your blood. There's 4 times the amount of lymph in your body than there is blood, but it doesn't have a pump. So you got to move it and stimulate it by movement and breathing. So all of a sudden you're cleansing your body, you're feeling good, you're getting oxygen to your brain and your lungs and your blood and feeling pumped up. Now at that point, parts of the morning routine we always recommend, stuff I learned from my dad years ago, but I've done for now 14, 15 years every day. And so start off with gratitude. Flood your mind and body with gratitude. From there, start with, after you do 3 minutes of gratitude where you're just speaking all the things you're grateful for out loud, which will just reset, tabula rasa. It'll clean the slate for you in the morning and clear the space, because now you're coming from a place of abundance instead of scarcity. And it feels good. And there's biological reasons why when you're rehearsing stuff you're grateful for, many times if you think back to stuff you've accomplished that you're proud of, it'll kick off some dopamine in your brain, which will make you feel good. It'll make you feel addicted to thinking about all those things you want to achieve and being proud of them. So those are great, neurotransmitters and hormones you want to start kicking off in your body. If you think about people you love, it might kick off a little oxytocin in your body, which will make you feel really connected and grounded. That also counteracts cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So all of a sudden it's balancing out your brain and making you feel better. And it's like, wow, how cool. Like you're doing all this cool biological cocktail in your brain, all a good, healthy one, first thing in the morning, just by moving, breathing, focusing on gratitude, followed up by visualizing and putting out into the future everything you really want to achieve. So thinking about the stuff you do want to accomplish. My thought is, if you think about stuff you've already accomplished and then match it up immediately with stuff you want to accomplish, pretty soon your brain can't tell the difference between the two, and it starts to have the same confidence in stuff you're about to achieve as it does the stuff you've already achieved. I don't have the science to back that one up. It's just a little belief I have. It's a trick of the mind I like to go with and believe it works. But I go with that and match it up. And then pretty soon, now you're feeling fired up. Now from there, I always do, my 20-year vision, I'll speak it aloud, 10-year vision, 5-year vision, 1-year vision, 6-month goals, my monthly goals, my weekly outcomes I want to achieve, my daily results. And then I'll switch from visualization, which is seeing the perfect ideal outcome you really want. I'll switch gears there and jump over into mental rehearsal. Now, the difference between the two, mental rehearsal is something a lot of athletes use. We use this when we go work with, Olympic teams or special forces in the service, and anyone like that who needs to prepare for something that's going to happen at a really elite level. Sales professionals, executives with big meetings or speeches. And what we do is we have you mentally rehearse step by step by step. Every meeting today, every conversation today, everything that's about to happen. There's lots of research in sports psychology behind this. Mm-hmm. And what it does is it prepares your mind and body for what you're about to do. And the difference is in visualization, you just see all the perfect stuff, amazing outcomes happen. In mental rehearsal, you actually see the reality of stuff that might show up that you don't want to have happen. Now, we get a lot of feedback from the, what is it? The secret people, the power of intention, where they're like, no, don't intend the bad stuff. You'll bring it into your life. And I always give them feedback and say, listen, if you're a professional boxer and you just want to visualize a perfect boxing round where you land all your punches and you don't get hit once, that's awesome. Lots of confidence, but I don't think it's genuine confidence, because what happens the moment you get hit real hard? You're not ready. It shocks you. You freak out. Mike Tyson said everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, and it's true. You have this beautiful plan of this perfect visualization of how you're going to conquer the day, and life socks you in the face one good time in in your morning, and everything goes to shit and it falls apart. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you got to be ready for those moments. You got to be willing to get punched real hard by life and go, part of life, shake it off, stand up, brush it off, keep going. And the only way you can do that mentally and emotionally is to prepare for it. Now, don't intend the negative stuff you're afraid of and scared of, but think of realistically, like, hey, if you're a sales rep, I'm guessing at least one person's going to tell you no today. That's not difficult to predict. If you have kids, I'm guessing they're going to do something unexpected that you would have never thought them doing. Something might break or go wrong. Someone might cry or get mad. Those are normal things, and they're not great things, but they happen. So if you see yourself, normally instead of freaking out over your child crying, see yourself getting a little perturbed, and then see yourself take a breath and calmly go right through the situation and effortlessly handle everything needed to be handled. And it's like, wow, you overcame that challenge very quickly in your mind. And what happens is you rehearse your day, the meetings, the conversations, the people, the situations, and you prepare for it. Now when it happens, you successfully make it through with ease instead of getting kicked back or shut down by that same exact experience. So we switch to mental rehearsal. We rehearse everything that's going to happen. And then from there, personal preference, I wrap up with a prayer. Then I go hit the gym, get my body going, and kick in high gear right there.
That's brilliant. Actually, a good friend and mentor of mine, Dr. John DeMartini, was in The Secret.
Yep.
And the part of his interview that got left on the cutting room floor was very much what you're talking about here. Not just embracing the positive side of what's going to happen in your day, but the negative, and then finding the gratitude for where those negatives could end up being a gift.
Yep.
And that's really where life starts to take on a whole new meaning. And as you said, that gratitude piece is such a key place where people sometimes miss that in their vision of where they're going, is forgetting to be grateful for where they are. So that is wonderful. Well, I could stay on here and talk to you forever, but I know our time has come to an end. So one thing I want to end with here, Jairek has a quote on his website, JarekRobbins.com. It says, "My goal is to assist people in the process of rapidly achieving their goals so they're able to live the life of their dreams. My hope is that they will eventually pay it forward and help those that they care about most to do the same." And that pretty much sums up what has prompted us to reach out to you and feature you on our podcast, Beyond Your Wildest Dreams. I know that your message can help so many people, not just in their life, but in helping other people through that ripple effect, paying it forward. So thank you very much for being with us today, Jairek.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a privilege. And for everyone who took the time to tune in, thank you for your time. Thank you for for listening in. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, please help share this and get it out to them. We'd really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So for those of you who would like to share with a friend, it is free on iTunes as well as a variety of podcasting web-based companies. If you'd like to keep in touch, you can also sign up on our weekly email newsletter at the Center for Epigenetic Expression.com. We hope to hear you again or have you listen to us again and feature more great talent and skills and tools that you can use to live your best life on Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast. Thanks.